The other day we were driving around and there was a bumper sticker on the car in front of us, and it was clearly some nerdy bumper sticker, and we were both kind of like, what is that from? You know, when you're a nerdy person, you think you know all the fandoms, even if you're not personally in them, you kind of know all the basic references anyway. So when something new pops up that you don't recognize, it's kind of like, what is that one? And after a moment of reflection, I realized that it was a Princess Donut bumper sticker from Dungeon Crawler Carl. I had this moment of thinking, wow, when you have a bumper sticker on a car, that's kind of the moment you start to go from popular thing to franchise. And there's no guarantee whether Dungeon Crawler Carl will be kind of a temporary fad or whether years from now it will still be a thing. The TV series will get made, the fandom will be very entrenched. I don't know. Nobody can predict that kind of thing, but that's definitely like a milestone if you can get on bumper stickers. Which touched upon something else I've been thinking about lately, which is the slower burn type of success. Like, the world is very fast-paced nowadays, so I know that when I release a book or start a new series, whatever, I kind of get it in my head like that the launch is going to determine the fate of the entire thing. And if it doesn't launch big and take off right away, that's kind of, oh well, that one didn't really click. And I know that's not always the case, but it's hard to shake because, like, if you're in indie publishing, you'll hear a lot about the Amazon 90-day release window where you get more visibility on the platform. If you're in traditional publishing, you'll hear about there's like a certain time frame that your book gets to succeed where it may appear in actual physical bookstores and it gets like a promotional push. And if it doesn't go anywhere during that time frame, you know, forget it, that one's a failure. And in a lot of cases, this is true, but it is not always true. And in fact, I think quite a few really popular things actually started on a slower trajectory. Sometimes the things that end up really hitting are the things that, you know, like the cult television show that got canceled by the network when it initially aired, and then it developed a fan following and eventually got brought back or lived on DVD or like internet, or, you know, there's certain things that just like they don't really hit when they come out, but the more word of mouth spreads, or sometimes the more like if an author releases enough books that people start to like binge read it and then they're really invested and they start to tell other people about it. A fair bit of really popular things started on a slower course. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you're new here, my name is Lydia Foxglove. I've been a professional novelist since 2009. I've been traditionally and indie published. I've written a lot of books, experienced a lot of ups and downs of the industry, and on this channel I talk about the writing life in particular and the creative life in general. So I've noticed the slow burn success very often falls into a very certain category book, and Dungeon Crawler Carl is an example of this. Now, I'm not sure like if Dungeon Crawler Carl was really popular in its niche from the moment it came out. I'm guessing it probably was because I first heard about it quite a few years ago, and I'm not even really like, I know it started out on Royal Road, which if you're not aware is like a serial publication platform that's really popular with like very certain genres like lit RPG. And quite a few novels have now started on Royal Road and gone on to be big, like The House Witch. But obviously the majority of people aren't on Royal Road, so it's still a bit of a niche space to be on Royal Road. But if you're popular enough on there, people might be kind of aware of you anyway. And I'm guessing that Dungeon Crawler Carl was kind of in this category simply because even though I'm not reading things on Royal Road and I don't really read lit RPG, I heard about it, I don't know when, but it's been a while. It's not new news to me or anything. So I'm guessing it was pretty popular right when it came out. I'm not just going to talk about Dungeon Crawler Carl. I have some other series examples to discuss as well. But clearly, whatever popularity it had in the beginning has just like exploded lately to where it seems like everyone I know is suddenly reading this series. And I would guess that nobody could have anticipated when it first started that it was going to get this mainstream, that it would be on bumper stickers, and it could get even more popular. This could be only the beginning of its popularity. Like, the levels of popularity that is possible is almost unfathomable when you begin. It's obviously very rare to get that level of success. However, you can scale this up or down in various ways, that not every book succeeds based on its initial launch. Now, when I think of a book that pops immediately, like the kind of more what I think of as the standard path of success, Fourth Wing is more of an example of that kind of success, where it had major buzz even before it came out. The first printing sold out like almost instantly, and it just had so much buzz when it released. And I feel like, although clearly any book in the Fourth Wing series is still going to sell like hotcakes, I feel like the buzz for it has kind of dropped a little bit from its initial release. So it was really big when it started. Like, it hit its peak very early, and it could still peak again. Could be TV series or movies, or the finale of the series really hits it and everybody's talking about it. There's various reasons that it could pop off again. But at least for now, I kind of feel like Fourth Wing is like your classic launch success, where it hits all the algorithms and blows past whatever the publisher hoped for it. Whereas you have a series like Dungeon Crawler Carl, where it just keeps building and building and building. So a lot of times the series that really hit when they release they really hit the trends of the time. They get a big marketing push. But the series that have more of a slow build, there's a few things they often have in common. They might be a little quirky upon release, not really what's in the mainstream at that time, but are somehow sort of seeing into the future of what's going to be popular soon. Sometimes it's simply that the marketing was kind of poor upon release. Might be an indie published book that didn't get a lot of marketing. The author marketed a little bit, but not a lot, and then it gets picked up by traditional publishing.
Disheveled editing, Lydia here. Actually, one book that's an example of poor marketing on launch was actually Sarah J. Maas's first book, Throne of Glass. I remember when it came out, the cover was a little blah. I believe it only sold in a 1-book deal, and they picked up the rest of the books later. I remember distinctly at the time how the blogger community really loved Throne of Glass and kept talking it up, and it kept building and building and building until it became a huge thing. And then, of course, ACOTAR became even bigger. But Sarah J. Maas was actually a good example of the series that built slowly and organically.
And when it gets that big push, suddenly really takes off. And very, very often it's a long series with consistent quality, so that people are starting it and they're binging it and they're talking about it. So a lot of times these series don't really pop off in a huge way when they start, because they need that like big bingeable arc for people to get so invested that then they have to tell everybody about it. They also often have very memorable characters, a very well-realized world. There's something kind of unique about them. There's something that really sticks out in the marketplace that might make it a little hard for people to pick up on it initially, because they're sort of like, what is this? But then if they try it, they like it. And not only do they like it, but they remember it because it was unique. The very thing that made them hesitant to pick it up in the beginning then becomes the star power quality of that thing. So I really first started thinking about this whole thing when it came to the Emma M. Lyon series. Emma M. Lyon is a series that kind of has a sort of Ella Montgomery, Jane Austen, like small town slice of life. It's written as Emma's diaries, and it's a long series that's still ongoing. Emma M. Lyon began in 2019, but I first heard about it on this channel when somebody mentioned it in a comment and said I might like this series, and that was around 2023. And when I went back and looked to see like when Emma M. Lyon started to like get a lot of reviews and like when did it start to kind of hit, it did seem like 2023 was the point where people started to read it in a more larger scale way. If you've ever published an indie book, you might know that it's often difficult to get readership outside of like a small circle of like people who follow you on social media, people who are invested in you. it's hard to really pop until you start to go beyond people that you personally have made contact with. Because your own Instagram, TikTok marketing, it can only go so far. If you really are going to sell in a big way, you have to have people starting to do your work for you, starting to recommend your books or talk about them on their own social media organically. So I was trying to go back and look like, what is the point where it seemed like people are starting to like recommend M.M. Lyon, talk about it on their writing blogs. 2023 seemed to be about the first point that I could find evidence that that had happened. And I don't know for sure. I haven't spoken to the author about her journey or anything, but just from what I can tell, there's not a lot of activity until 2023, which would imply that she was publishing the series for 4 years before it really started to pick up any major traction. And that was the 2023 level of visibility was only the beginning, because now book one has been ranked in the top 100 on Amazon for the last at least several months. Whenever I look at it, it's still hanging out there like at a very solid rank. And now I'm starting to see more word of mouth. I'm starting to see other people recommending it. I'm starting to see my Facebook friends like mention that they read it, people reading it in like a book club I follow. Just like now it pops up everywhere. So it's kind of gotten to the point where if you are the sort of person who is readership for a book like M.M. Lyon, there's a decent chance that you have heard of it now. But it probably still has a very long way to go. I'm sure there are people watching this video right now who enjoy the works of Ellen Montgomery and Jane Austen and those kind of slice of life countryside books who have never heard of it and are like, I should check that out, because I don't think it's hit that kind of critical mass yet. So it could have a long way to go.
Hey guys, I love a little data in here. So let me just briefly show, I really couldn't think of a really great way to show the trajectory of these two series. If anybody can think of a better way to research this, let me know. But I went to the Wayback Machine to see did they record on the Wayback Machine any previous rankings or review totals for Dungeon Crawler Carl or M.M. Lyon? So they didn't have anything going back too far, but both of them had a 2024 Goodreads page saved. Okay, so in 2024, M.M. Lyon, book one, had 3,300 ratings and 799 reviews. So this is already 2024. It's already been out for 5 years. And that is a very respectable total, about 800 reviews. Most of those seem like they came in the last year. There's just a couple on that first page that predated 2023. But then the current page says it has 126,057 ratings and 19,775 reviews. So we've just blown so far past the totals in 2024. So that just goes to show what a slow trajectory this series has had and how popular it's getting now. And same thing, Dungeon Crawler Carl in 2024 had 41,542 ratings and about 4,600 reviews. Currently, we're at 584,581 ratings, 77,990 reviews. So also, again, the total in 2024 was respectable. Most indie authors would consider that a success, but it was only at the very beginning of the success it was going to have 4 years after publication. And again, I don't know what either of these books look like a year after they were released. So some books really do just take a very long time to find their audience. And this is not going to apply for every type of book, but if you do have that kind of series that this is just the story of your heart, it's big, it's got characters that have a lot of richness, the world, just there's something about it that keeps compelling you. I do think that it is worth continuing to do marketing, even if you're not getting a lot of traction at first. If you're getting any kind of good response, even if it's just from a small handful of people who feel like they're in a teeny tiny club, it might go somewhere eventually.
And this is particularly fascinating to me because it goes counter to a lot of what we first think of when we think of success as an indie author. To publish a book in 2019 and not really see a lot of traction for 4 years, that's quite a long time to stick with something that isn't selling very much. But I think most of us, like, if we could choose what kind of success we were going to have, I know that I would rather have the slow burn success than the flash in the pan big debut success, for a number of reasons. It's really, like, it's a lot to process if you have a book hit really kind of right off the bat and you haven't even written the rest of the series yet. It feels a little more unstable, like you're kind of getting your readers based more on like flashy marketing than like a true dedicated, like, yeah, I've been reading the series now for 4 years. I was in it from the beginning. I love it so much. I've been telling everybody about it. People who become fans because they binged 5 of your books in a row and now they're really invested. That's like a cult following kind of success. And it just feels a lot more like your readers are more dedicated if you get that kind of success. And they also have that feeling like they discovered something special that like other people didn't know about, which is always kind of a delicious feeling for a fandom. And then other people want to kind of join in on the fun. So you're creating something like that, kind of a what starts as a secret club, and then more and more people want in. It starts to become not just a club, but a party. And then maybe it gets a little overwhelming at some point, but at least it's been slow for you. So you have time to process each step of your success without getting too overwhelmed. So this to me is just an ideal form of success in the long run. But let's think about 2019 to 2023, writing books. I'm sure she was probably working a day job and trying to squeeze in the writing around that, and just writing it like, I don't know if anybody's really ever going to read this. We've all been there. And basically putting a lot of hours into something for not a lot of reward. And a lot of people do this and never really hit a moment of success. So you're just kind of taking a leap of faith. You're doing it for the love of the work without knowing. There's no guarantee that just because you put in the love and the work and write something good that it's ever going to be discovered. But I think that very quality of the creator putting in that level of depth and love into their work just for the love of it, if it does hit, it becomes a very powerful force, because it doesn't have that shallow written to market quality, which, I talk a lot on here. I have no problem with writing to market. I've done it myself. It's what nearly all career authors have to do at some point, just to keep doing what they do. So no hate at all on writing to market, and it can produce some very good work sometimes, but it's a little different than something that you wrote just because, like, you just had this idea and you loved it, you wanted to get the story out into the world, or these characters have just been with you a long time and you wanted to share their story. There's a certain like uniqueness and purity that when it works is better than anything else. It often doesn't work, but when it does, it's just the best. But due to the somewhat unique nature of these works that are not necessarily written to market, like if you were going to sit down and be like, what should I write to make money, to hit the top 100 on Amazon? What would be my best chance? No one would ever calculate, I'm going to write like a small town Ella Montgomery type book written in the form of diary entries. That would never be your first calculation. You'd be like, okay, I'm going to write like this hot romantasy with a bad boy. And, you would go for something like that. That's big, popular stuff. However, chances are you probably wouldn't hit the top 100, and you wouldn't write anything that anybody would really remember long term, or like have like a really unique relationship with as a reader, creator sort of. You know what I mean? Like when you have that really special piece of media that speaks to you because there's nothing else like it. It's like something you didn't realize how badly you wanted it. And finally, someone has made it and scratched that itch for you. And this is one reason that I keep going back to writing my Hidden Land series, even though sometimes people come on here and they're like, they're clearly not making as much money as your written to market stuff. You probably should just drop it. But the fact is, you don't really know. you really, really don't know. And I know just based on kind of watching how the trajectories go with other books, that the Hidden Lands has that quality of something that could have a slow burn success because it does have well-realized world and characters, and it's something unique that also still delivers some things that people are known to like already. And there's no guarantee. If I look into the future, how are these books selling? I have no idea. I haven't been able to put as much into them as I would like because, again, these are the things you have to write around the margins of your real life, the things you do to make money. But at the same time, they are the things that you will be remembered for if you happen to look into connecting with people. And it's something that I really believe strongly in, that if you are a creative person who just like has to create, and even if you spend a lot of your time on more commercial projects, which might make you think that it's like a waste of your time to work on that more niche thing that you don't know if it's going to succeed, I really think that it is worth doing whether it succeeds or not, because just the act of daring to do it is how we get these really memorable and unique and like the kind of books that do end up hitting the top 100 on Amazon and having their own table at Barnes & Noble eventually and being on a bumper sticker because they stand out. So I guess this is kind of my like semi-regular plea to people to just like keep doing that weird stuff and the stuff of your heart, even if you don't have as much time for it as you would like and you don't know if anybody will ever read it, but it is worth trying to do in whatever time you can muster up, because it could be something really great, and 7 years after you start doing it, it could also be making absolute bank. You just never know. I'd love to know what some of your favorite like slow burn success books, TV shows, things are. Drop those in the comments. If you'd like more from me, I have memberships available through YouTube memberships and also on Patreon and Substack. Same content on all 3 platforms, and you get 2 bonus videos per month from me, as well as access to my Discord server. I don't know what's up with the Discord connection. Just message me and I'll figure it out for you, don't worry. If you'd like to read any of my books, of course the Hidden Lands books are always the ones I recommend because those are my quirky babies, but I have a number of written to market books as well. You can find them all in a link in the description. I post pretty much every Wednesday and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and I thank you so much for watching and being here to chat about this stuff with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.